Hello, this is Amber Thompson with AT College Consulting, and I'm here today to talk to you about letters of recommendation and tips for securing strong letters of recommendation from your teachers for the college applications. A strong letter of recommendation helps a college understand your academic strengths and provides insight into your character. Each letter should showcase a different side of you and help colleges understand how you might contribute in various areas of campus life. One of the first questions to know is when you should ask for letters of recommendation. And my answer is always the earlier the better. Strive for at least 3 months in advance of any deadlines that you have. Essentially, it's best to ask teachers before the end of your junior year. So perhaps you can ask in late spring, somewhere between the end of April to early June. Just try to ask them before you depart for summer break. If you don't happen to ask before the end of school, all is not lost, but be sure to ask them in late August to early September. Give your teachers a week or two to settle in after school has started, and then pop the question. The next key question is figuring out who you should ask. It's important to choose teachers who know you well and have taught core academic subjects, including math, science, English, social studies, and in many cases, at many schools, foreign language. Typically, colleges want to read letters written by your junior year teachers. However, there is definitely more flexibility due to the pandemic. Colleges know that many students have not had a whole lot of actual FaceTime with teachers this year. And so there's more understanding if you need to ask perhaps a sophomore year teacher with whom you had much more interaction and who knows you better than perhaps a junior year teacher. So the general rule of thumb is ask a junior year teacher, but if a sophomore teacher knows you better, then there's some flexibility during these particular times. Essentially, you should ask a teacher with whom you've formed a relationship and can speak to your strengths in the classroom and your character traits. You do not have to ask the teacher who gave you the highest grade. It's more important that they know you well. If you have the opportunity to submit multiple letters of recommendation, you should choose teachers who can highlight your strengths from various angles, because each of these teachers in different disciplines will know you in different contexts and can speak to your different strengths in different subject areas. Unless you are pursuing a particular major such as art or theater or music, then I would not recommend choosing an elective teacher for your main letter. However, you can definitely use them as a supplemental letter of recommendation, just not perhaps your first and foremost one, unless you are choosing to major in that particular subject. There are some key considerations when you're thinking about why you should ask a particular teacher. And it's really important for you to consider how this teacher knows you differently than other teachers do. When you are approaching a teacher to ask if they will write you a strong letter of recommendation, you can remind them of all the excellent work you did in their class and share the growth that you experienced during the time you had them as a teacher. You can think about how you do or how you did contribute to the learning and community in this classroom. You can elaborate on what your role was in the class. Perhaps you can address which lessons in the class were especially intriguing to you, or if there are certain class projects you are most proud of, you can explain those reasons why to the teacher. Overall, you should discuss what kind of impact the class and the teacher had on you and how you grew overall as a person when you were in this teacher's class. I like to point this out to students so they have a better understanding of the criteria that colleges are actually asking recommenders to consider. And this is directly from the Common App, and this is what teachers see when they are asked to write a letter of recommendation for a student. So as you can see, there are several different criteria that are listed, and then teachers are able to rate the student based on how they have performed and their particular traits in certain areas. I will read them off to you so you can see what they are. They're academic achievement, intellectual promise, quality of writing, creative original thought, productive class discussion, respect accorded by faculty, disciplined work habits, maturity, motivation, leadership, integrity, reaction to setbacks, concern for others, self-confidence, initiative, and independence. With these ratings, I encourage students to ask, what are my strengths? And are there any steps I can take now to strengthen any of these particular areas? If you're asking a teacher for a letter of recommendation before the end of the school year, you definitely have a few weeks left where you can perhaps really improve in a few areas and go off leaving a very strong, solid impression as you move into the summer. If you'll note in the evaluation section, colleges want to know how you are different from other students, and they want these academic and personal characteristics to be reflected upon by the teacher. Now, do know underneath the evaluation section, the teacher is able to upload their personal letter of recommendation, so they have lots of space to elaborate upon all of these different criteria and to provide their own input outside of this particular ratings page. What about other letters of recommendation? Many colleges allow you to upload additional letters of recommendation from individuals who are important to you who might be outside of your school. And this might be a coach, an arts teacher, a music instructor, a theater director, someone from your church, or perhaps an employer. All of these different adults can speak about you given the different contexts that they know you, and they can certainly provide the colleges with key impressions as to who you are and your personal strengths and your characteristics. And these are very valuable aspects in the college application process. So when you've decided who you want to ask, you can contemplate your options on how to ask this particular teacher. And this is where you have a few different options. And it's best to think about what you know about this teacher and if you have opportunities to ask them in person, or perhaps you have a very strong email relationship. So you can think about what might be the best approach for each individual teacher. Some teachers do prefer to be asked in person. Others prefer to be asked via email. So just do your best to figure out what approach might be best for each teacher you are considering. If you're asking in person, try to schedule a meeting with the teacher so that you can have one-on-one time with them. Make sure you're asking independently of other students so that the teacher can focus on you and your request. And if the teacher says yes, then you're going to be able to follow up with an extensive email with all of the necessary details. If you ask via email, on the other hand, the teacher will have the flexibility and the convenience to respond to you in their own time. And you will be able to write a very detailed email the first time around, complete with all of the compelling reasons why this particular teacher would be a great recommender for you. Whether you are asking in person or via email, be sure to ask the teacher, are you able to write a strong letter of recommendation for me? Of course, nobody wants a mediocre letter of recommendation. No one wants an average one or a subpar one. We want teachers who can write strong letters of recommendation. So that should be in your ask, and they should definitely be considering if they can create that strong letter for you. I really appreciate this particular quote from a local teacher in my area. She recommends that students craft a well-constructed, polite email that not only includes the request for the letter, but also what the student's specific higher education plans are so far, why they have chosen me to ask, and a small blurb about what they are hoping I will highlight for them. I think that her quote does a good job of indicating that part of this letter of recommendation request process really requires you to be self-reflective. And your teacher will be able to write a stronger letter of recommendation if you share these particular thoughts. Now, this exercise comes from Rick Clark, who is the director of undergraduate admissions from Georgia Tech and writes a fantastic blog about the college application journey and has even written a book on it. That's one of my favorite resources. He really encourages students to tap into why they want to go to college and the type of people that they hope to be around and what types of situations really bring out the best in you and what opportunities you are seeking in college and perhaps what you hope to do upon graduation. And if you can think about these particular details, really be self-reflective and provide these to your teacher, they are definitely going to be able to write a stronger letter of recommendation based on the information you provide here. Now, when you write this letter of recommendation request or the email, there are several components that go into this master email. First of all, you want to make sure that you have your school's brag sheet and or your resume. And each school perhaps has a different form where they like students to provide information about all they've accomplished over their high school career. And you can check with your counseling office if you're not sure what that is. I'm sure that they have one for you. And very often teachers like to have this formal document filled out on all of their students. So you can check with your counseling office to figure out what that is. And if you have a professional looking resume, be sure to provide that to your teacher so they know about all the exciting things you do even outside of their classroom. We already touched on the importance of addressing why you want to go to college. So you definitely need to be able to express your goals for higher education and how you hope to grow as a student and a person throughout your undergraduate days. It's also important to have a beginning list of the colleges you're applying to. And if you are talking and approaching a teacher towards the end of your junior year, the teachers will definitely understand that this list may evolve over time and over summer, but it's important for them to get a sense at the beginning of what types of schools you are looking to apply to. Similarly with dates and deadlines, these might change a bit over time over the summer, but by midsummer, you should definitely know the deadlines and the due dates for all of the letters of recommendation that you might need, and you can communicate this to your teacher. We already looked a little bit about the importance of knowing why you are asking this particular teacher and acknowledging what this teacher can highlight specifically about you. Very often, a teacher will take this information that you've shared about the impact the class had on you, perhaps a particular assignment that you did extremely well on, and they will be able to take those details and include them in the letter of recommendation they're writing for the college. So if you take the time and invest in writing a strong email asking this teacher for the letter of recommendation, very often they can include the details that you've reminded them of, and you can help the teacher write this strong letter of recommendation. So really at the end of the day, make sure you know and you're communicating to the teacher why they are such a good person to convey your strengths and character traits. I want to have a quick word about the FERPA release authorization. And this is essentially a key component of the Common App as well as other college application portals where they are asking students to essentially waive your right to review any recommendation written on your behalf. And as the Common App explains, waiving your right lets colleges know that you do not intend to read your recommendations. And this helps reassure colleges that the letters are candid and truthful. So I've included a couple of screenshots here for you to see where you can find this particular release authorization form on the My Colleges tab. And then to make sure that you see which particular box that you need to check to show that you are waiving your rights to read any of the recommendations. Throughout the entire process, communication and gratitude are key. You want to make sure your teachers have all the information they need to write a strong letter. And as this teacher communicates, she says, I do appreciate lots of communication throughout the process. I want to be reminded about deadlines from the student, even if I'm well aware of them, because that shows me their investment in the process. I want students to communicate changes in their plan, and I really appreciate a thank you at the end of the process. And her final note is definitely a key one to make note of because it is really important that you follow up with a thank you. You need to let your teacher know how grateful you are that they have invested their own personal time and energy into writing your letter. After a teacher has submitted your letter, you can thank them with a handwritten card and maybe even a small gift if it's within your family's budget. My final tips on securing great letters of recommendation. I've got 6 of them. Number 1, make sure you ask early. Number 2, always be polite. 3, choose your teachers and recommenders thoughtfully. Number 4, communicate thoroughly. Number 5, always know your deadlines. And 6, and finally, make sure you show gratitude throughout the entire process. Again, my name is Amber Thompson, and I thank you for listening today. You can find more resources at my website, atcollegeconsulting.com, and you can even schedule a complimentary 45-minute consultation if you would like to chat more with me about the college application journey. Thanks so much.